What's good, y'all? It's your boy Dro, and I'm here today with a couple special guests. I'm here with Say and GENiiUS.
Yes, sir.
Yo, yo, yo.
For the people at home who are going to be watching this and aren't familiar with you two, could you just feel free to just explain who you are and talk about the project that y'all worked on?
Yes, sir. So, as y'all know, I go by C. I know a lot of people do say, but I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's
let
my
them
fault.
know.
I
Nah, it's all
apologize.
good. It's all good. I don't even correct people anymore. But yeah, I go by C. I'm a rapper for sure. I produce a little bit here and there. Um, So originally started rapping in the Midwest in Chicago. Went to school at DePaul University, and then recently, like 2018, moved out to Washington D.C. So that's where I'm based right now, and have really just been trying to drop quality projects. I mean, I've always been trying to drop quality projects, but these past 5 or 6 years definitely have just been putting way more of a focus on quality over quantity. And I linked with GENiiUS in on Discord a couple years ago, but I'll let him tell you guys who he is.
Yeah, man, the name's Genius from South Africa, from a town called Esikhaweni, KwaZulu-Natal.
Appreciate y'all for taking time out your day to chop it up. Yeah, so C sent me the project a few weeks ago. The project is called Guyana With Love. I'm
Yes,
not sure I'm
sir.
pronouncing it right.
Yes, sir.
The reason why I wanted to set up this conversation with you two is because, honestly, just the message of the album itself, the story behind the album, it deals a lot with kind of like this immigrant story, which I feel like is very timely with today's current events. But also, there's this historical connection between Guyana and South Africa that I'm sure the average American isn't privy to, and I think it really speaks to just like the importance of creating solidarity and unity with people from like different cultures and identities. So yeah, let's just get into it, man. So how did y'all even connect in the first place, and what was the decision to create this album?
Right. So I connected with GENiiUS a few years ago on Discord. We were just chopping it up about podcasts and whatnot, music and things like that. We'd like link in VC and just, well, voice chat for people who don't know. But we'd link in the voice chat on that app and then just debate music, listen to music, talk music, things like that. And through there, I noticed that, very quickly that, with all due respect, GENiiUS is a dust head, as I am myself. So,
I
you
think we're
know,
all dust
Yeah,
heads here.
for sure,
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
sure.
For
So,
lack of a
he was
better
just
term.
right. He was just putting me onto all that, and I would try to put him onto some music too, but I definitely know that he was deep in that world. So, he
Yes,
put me
sir.
on the Mach, he put me on the Navy, he put me on to a lot of people and things like that, Rock Morrissey and things like that. So really, just I knew that's where he was at. And during the pandemic, I was making tapes with producers. It started as 5 tracks, and then it started going up into full projects. So around the time I did the third installation of this Care Pack series, which basically started out as, hey, we're all on lockdown. I'm going to give you guys a care pack of music to hold you down and things like that. So by the time the third care pack dropped, we were back outside, but still kind of dealing with the fallout from that time and things like that. And it was from a different producer on Discord named Mahi, and I would say he's very reminiscent of Jay Dilla and things like that. So it was right after I dropped that project, GENiiUS hit me up and he said, "Hey man, we got a link. We're gonna get a care pack soon." And I said, "Hey, let me know, man. I've been hearing about your beats, but I haven't heard anything yet." And the next project I was making, he had sent me a beat at the last minute before I had to turn anything in, and amazing, amazing. So that was where I already knew, like, I trust his ear and I knew what he was going to bring to the table. And then probably like 2 years after that, which is this year, 2025, he said he was ready. He was back good. Technology wise, I think like his laptop might have been like it might have gone through some difficulties or something like that the
Yes,
past
sir.
few years, or lost a whole lot of files. But he told me that this was the year and he was ready, and he just started sending me track after track, and we started locking in. And then he was the one who really told me he wanted to name this From Guyana With Love, and kind of put me on kind of like a just a higher responsibility with the messaging. But I'll let him get into that.
Yeah, man. Steve, as you mentioned earlier, was already doing the series Care Pack. You know, shout out to Mahi as well. He produced Care Pack 3. That was a very, very special tape, and it inspired me to broaden the idea of the Care Pack series into something else as a way to separate myself and C in terms of his artistry as well and growing as an artist. So the Guyana connection made it even more special because that's where he's from, that's where his roots are. And me being South African, I knew the connection about Georgetown welcoming Steve Biko in 1987 when we were going through the unrest, apartheid. And Guyana actually was very supportive in us battling that time. And
You a whole legend. Promise you. Hey, it's From Guyana With Love. You heard? For real. Shout out to my brother C, man. GENiiUS. You a legend and a producer. So let me tell you something about Guyana. Ooh, man. A place of many waters. For real. If you go to sleep in Guyana and wake up in the morning, you will have figured everything out. I promise you. One of the most beautiful places in the world, bro. A land of many waters. And I'm gonna tell you something. If you alive and you a whole human, you should know someone from Guyana. For real. And shout out to everybody that got a homie named GT. GT. Wagwan. Yo, G Bana. Yeah. For real. But you know what it is. Man, shout out to C. Shout out to GENiiUS. And this is the interesting part about that. Is that you can't be a genius unless you are able to see. And you can't see nothing unless you a genius. Peace and love.
They used to think I was from Ghana, West Africa. No, do the knowledge and the science. So it's like, a lot of times it's like Guyana's just a small country, and then when you think of the Caribbean, you're thinking of islands and things like that. But we're right at the tip of South America, so culturally we are, Caribbean. The headquarters for CARICOM is in Guyana and things like that. And I think AA being who he is, he's Guyanese too, which is crazy. I got on the phone with him when I was telling him about the project, trying to like just tell him like what we really wanted, and didn't give him a script or anything. He does what he does. He already knew. And it's just kind of like a divine thing that is like, from just how we came up, and the music that we are inspired by. It was a no-brainer to be like, for GENiiUS to say, let's reach out to A.A. Rashid for the intro. You've heard him on West Side Gun projects and things like that. You've heard him, just doing spoken word on all those, kind of new traditional albums and things like that. So for us, it was like we want that same type of urgency from him, and then to figure out over the phone that he's Guyanese as well. It's like, okay, he knows what to say. But I do agree, how you said he made it like this elusive paradise and things like that. And I think when he says when you wake up in Guyana, everything will be okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have $1 million, like all your problems is gone. But just knowing that what you have to go through to even survive in Guyana or in any Caribbean nation, like, yeah, it's not always the resort that you're going to if you actually live there. So it's like, if you're able to live there and you can wake up in that country and prosper, then yeah, I mean, essentially all your problems are gone. Because I mean, it's tough. So I definitely, at least that's what I took from his words, and I think that those words can be applied to many nations for sure. But I mean, I'm not the host or anything, but I know before GENiiUS lost his connection, I really wanted to hear what he was saying about Steve Biko, because it just felt like that was like powerful, but then we lost connection.
Yeah, man. Let's definitely get into that, man. Please.
Yeah, I was going on a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to stamp the fact that there's a bigger connection between Guyana and South Africa. What we know is South Africa today. Guyana helped with a lot of activists. A lot of activists worked during the apartheid times, and even in 1987, when Steve Biko had to go overseas, he was welcomed in Georgetown. So I think that made the whole connection even that more special between C and I and our direction for this project. Because as good as the music can be, I wanted it to have a lasting effect on the listener, for them to know something more about either South Africa or Guyana, because it's not as it's portrayed in the media. It's a lot of deeper conflict in each country.
And yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off what he's saying, my dad definitely has kind of corroborated what he was saying. Because when I was telling my dad that GENiiUS wanted to do a project, I'm like letting him know, like, hey, my homie from Discord who's from South Africa, my dad's like, hold on, like, slow down. So I'm trying to tell him like what this connection is, and then how he wants to do a project and somebody wants to focus on Guyana and things like that. And he's like, he's from South Africa. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, like, Guyana had helped the activists during those apartheid times to fight against apartheid and things like that. And then, GENiiUS saying that as well. It was like, okay, like, so this is verified and whatnot. As he said, Steve Biko staying in Georgetown, Guyana, the capital of Guyana. So there's definitely hospitality on both ends, both countries and things like that. So it just made the connection that much stronger. And then even tapping in and having his homie Baba Kushi, who's a rising artist out in South Africa, get on the project as well, was like, all right, let's keep going, let's keep adding all these layers of importance to people that, as he said, it's good music, but then once you dig deeper, then you're going to see like, yeah, this is intentional, and there's just a lot of things that we kind of like want to educate people on or about without throwing them a textbook or anything like that. Letting people figure things out for themselves, essentially.
Obviously, talking to you, you gave me more of a provide me a historical insight. But I like to consider myself a historian myself, so I really did feel like I learned a lot from this album for sure. I mean, you said it in the album, like a lot of times people think you're talking. You say Guyana, they think you hear Ghana, like the West African country. So it kind of lends the idea how kind of underrepresented the country is, so it's really very dope to see someone of that nation, such as yourself, to actually like, no, like, this is where I'm from, this is who we are, this is what I represent. I think that's really beautiful to hear in a time like this, for sure. And I think also it speaks more to the just the overall immigrant experience, right? So here in Chicago, as y'all may or may not know, right now it's kind of like the testing ground for this Trump uh, situation with deporting undocumented people, and it's been actually yesterday, man. It's been affecting my own community like very hard. But yesterday, I literally woke up to the sound of like whistles and car horns going by because they're abducting people in my neighborhood. So very like stressful times for sure. So I think it's very important for people to speak on their immigrant experiences, and also like to show the fact that like immigrants, I think the media always represents as just like Latinos, but nah, there's a lot of black immigrants as well, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, no, I mean like I see your stories and I'll see you post like I mean, I don't know if it's the neighborhood coffee shop or the neighborhood this or that, but you were saying that some establishment close to you is getting like touched and things like that. And I had a Hispanic homie from Chicago visit in DC probably like a week ago, a week and a half ago, and you see a lot of stuff on the news, and then he was telling me like, no, it's serious. Like he's a citizen, and he's telling me he's trying to lay low, and he said he's got homies who are citizens who might do construction. They got picked up. 2 days later, they just got sent back out. No uh, no apology, no anything. And that's 2 days of missed work that these people now have to go explain. And hopefully somebody has some compassion and understanding, like, that's out of my hands that I missed work. And hopefully they don't lose their job and things like that. But yeah, he said he knew people who were undocumented who got deported and things like that. And then, just from what I'm hearing, is that right, black citizens too are getting harassed and things like that on South Side and things like that. They're getting their houses like kind of like messed with or broken into and things like that. Obviously, there's a lot of immigrants too, so whether it be Guyanese or African or Haitian or whoever, no one's going. This is one thing I don't want to go crazy, but this is one thing I gotta say because, like, the whole FBA movement, that's kind of, to me, nothing against it. I understand, like, maybe where the idea was born out of, but I feel like it quickly turned into, like, a Black MAGA thing, the foundational Black American thing. So, to me, I think this situation shows that we need to have unity, regardless if you are American, if you're a citizen, or if you are from the greater diaspora. Just because when ICE or the police or anybody looks at you, they're not going to sit there and be like, oh, you're American, or you're Ghanaian, or you're Guyanese, or you're Jamaican. They're just going to see you're black and that's it. So, again, when it comes to ICE, like, it's not like they're checking or anything like that. Like, maybe after they pick you up a couple days later, then they're like, all right, go out there. But they're rarely going to mess with white folks or anything. They're just, even if you're a Polish immigrant or you're not, they're just going to be like, oh yeah, he's white, he belongs, he deserves to be here. So they're not going to check on these people, even though they have the same thing. Like, not every white person is a citizen and things like that, but they're not going to do that. But they're going to look at us. So yeah, I see people online being like, oh, it's not our issue and things like that, but you are right, it's way more than just a Hispanic issue. Like, if you just sit there and be quiet, like, it's going to come to your door next. It's going to come to your door next. But yeah, that's one of the things where people do have to speak up and say like, hey, this is wrong, and kind of give credence to the stories and things like that. Let people know, like, yeah, be proud of your differences, but also we do need unity to look out for each other, because these are some strange times and whatnot. And it's crazy that, we grew up with the notion of this is a melting pot, and now that whole idea is gone. Like, what happened to the whole melting pot? What happened to this is a country made of immigrants? Because essentially everybody's an immigrant. This is stolen land, but clearly we know where the divide is now. So yeah, I don't think anybody's really safe just because you're not, Hispanic and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely important to kind of like tell these stories, and don't be scared of telling these stories either. I think we need to be louder about it. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to add on to that with the whole immigration thing, it's a very huge topic in South Africa as well. You know, as much as the media wants to portray that there's a an alleged white genocide
Oh yeah.
of South Africans, you know, the real story is it's a bunch of neighboring African countries that have made South Africa their home, whether legally or illegally. And I have a few friends from these countries, and they go through the traumas of, yo, where are your papers? Where you from? You know, things like that. So it's a it's a story that a lot of people around the world can relate to, and I feel I felt that it's important and see that CNI portray that with the project.
Absolutely. That's definitely a righteous idea, for sure. I think Americans, we often are. I feel like, man, dude, I'm gonna be real, man. Americans just aren't global thinkers. The average
Yeah.
American is not a global thinker. And by that I mean looking at news of what's happening around the world, and looking at different issues from like different global viewpoints. Americans only are just individualists. We just think about ourselves, and like I don't think
Yeah,
we
that's
realize
all I've
that
heard.
there's there's immigration issues happening around the world, and this definitely not a coincidence that's happening at the same time too. It's that like
Yeah,
you got all these countries kind of seeing this rise of this anti immigrant attitude, no matter what country it is. It seems like but one of the great things about hip hop though is that it's a unifier. Y'all are, I mean, literally like connected through international borders, but we're able to come together and create a common goal. So like, what does that kind of feel like? Do you guys ever think about that in some perspective, or is it just kind of just like, oh no, this is just the homie?
Nah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like, it really is crazy, man. Like, whoever thought that hip hop would take it this far for real? Because the only thing that might get in the way of anything is just the time difference. And I'll say genius, man. Like, he'll be on Discord when the American side of Discord is waking up, and by the time it's like at least I'm going to sleep, he might still be there and things like that. And sometimes I think like, damn, like this man might be putting in hours. Not that he's on Discord long, but if I really think of the
yeah,
time difference, I'm like, damn, like he really trying to tap in with us, and it might be 3 a.m. over there or something like that. So that's the only challenge. But other than that, like I said, he's put me on to music. So I can't really sit here and be like, oh, I'm American, I live here, so this culture is just readily mine, and I soak it all up. He's putting me on to things that I haven't heard. I might try to put him on to things like that. But then, we got homies in Amsterdam and things like that. You got homies in London. You got homies. The one producer I said earlier from Care Pack 3, Mahi, he's from Barbados and
that's
things like
Mahi.
that. Right. So it's like you definitely got a lot of people all over the world, and like a common denominator is like, what do you think of this project? What do you think of the Earl Sweatshirt project? And then once we connect there, then it's like, all right, cool, but who are you as a person? Before we even know who you are as a person, it's like, what do you think of this album or that album and things like that? And then that's a huge common denominator that brings people together. So it's definitely crazy that music is like a common language and things like that. And then once you start speaking that language, then I can get put on to Baba Kushi from South Africa. Then I can get put on to Kijani, or is it, I might say his
Louisiana
name
Dam.
wrong, right? So I'm getting put onto all these South African hip hop artists and things like
Yes,
that. And
sir.
then through them, I'm listening to other people. So hip hop, American hip hop could be like the main kind of like connector, but then through there you start hearing, oh, this is what you're listening to locally, and this is what you're listening to locally, and then start getting put on to what they're going through on a day to day. So it definitely is like the great connector, I'd say.
Yeah. I just want to shout out to Ellis Free as well, who was a contributor to the project.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's also a homie from the Discord. Shout out to Free.
yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Just to provide context to Ellis Free, you mentioned he's Venezuelan American.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
out in Florida, but yeah,
yeah.
Venezuelan American for sure. So
Mm.
we connected with music too. We connected through music too. I've actually gone and kicked it with him at Art Basel like a couple years, and it's crazy because like I've always known he's made music, but then he finally started getting in the lab and actually recording music and things like that. So I know he's got a couple genius produced projects in the tuck and ready to go.
Yes, sir.
And when we were working on the project, it was a no brainer. Like he needs to get on the project
Mm.
and whatnot. And he's a real student to the game. And I told him straight up when he was like getting on the project. I was like, hey man, Venezuela and Guyana, they got their little beef over land disputes and things like that. But me and him, obviously that's never been a problem for us.
Mm.
But it was just another layer that I had to add onto the project to make everything make sense.
Mm.
Even if he didn't have that, just him being the homie, yeah, you could still hop on the project. But him being Venezuelan just added something else. So I
Mm.
just I just had to, like, this is bigger than you and me. Like, this is kind of some solidarity that we are
Yeah.
showing. That
Mm.
we can kind of shake hands, break bread, be on the same track, even though maybe our nations kind of like still have this kind of issue over land and things like that. But
Mm.
it's definitely a beautiful thing when you start to like really recognize everybody's background outside of just what they can write or what they can produce. But like, what are you really bringing to this project, or what are you bringing to this tape outside of just yourself? What's the larger message and things like that?
Mm.
So that's kind of where we try to like keep it as far as intentionality and whatnot.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on to that, Genius?
Yeah, man. Just the fact that we're actually friends outside of the music stuff.
Mm.
We kick it, we talk multiple hours per day. So you can tell you all about that in a different time. But you know, that just makes the music even better, in my opinion.
Speaking of just in the intentionality of the project, I know there's a lot of records that are sampled that are from like Guyanese pop records, right? So could y'all talk about maybe the selection for the album, the beat selection?
Yeah. Personally, I was. How can I phrase this? My real introduction to hip hop was that early good music era.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's late registration, college dropout, B. So I'd take a lot of inspiration from that time, and if you really listen to the project, you could really tell that I drew a lot of jewels from that particular well of knowledge. You know, and even the connection of that being Chicago, Steve's from Chicago too. It just makes everything that much special for me. And with the beat selection, it's just some fly shit, man. For lack of a better term, I just want to do some good music that people can enjoy, listen to with your family, your friends, at any setting, anytime.
And I mean, just to add on, when you say like Guyanese pop and things like that, when he was sending me these tracks, um, I already told you like at least what I've come to know about Genius, about his ear and things like that is like, it's Mach, it's Fahim, it's Rock Marcy, it's Griselda, it's Navy Blue, it's Earl,
Yes, sir.
Theravada, um,
Madlib,
Fortes,
shout out to Madlib too.
right? Madlib, Fortes, Craven, all these guys and things like that. So to me, when he's sending me these tracks, I'm like, I'm not seeing a difference. I'm putting him on that level. So I ask him, like, obviously no sample snitching, of course, but I ask him, like,
Yes, sir.
where are you getting these joints from? And he was basically like, I am basically trying to take records from what was popping in Guyana in like what 60s,
The
70s, and
80s.
things like that, 70s and
Yeah.
80s. So that was the stuff that the Guyanese people were playing. Not necessarily like the samples are from Guyanese artists, but like this is kind of what was popping at that time in Guyana. This is what was kind of driving the culture over there as well. Um, so that definitely like really like kind of like just made sense, and just kind of made it think like he's really thinking like I know he just said, yo, it's some fly shit, which it is, but to sit there and say, you know what, like let me like add another layer just in how we source these samples, how we make these beats. And before I even started rapping to these beats and things like that, I played them for my dad and I played them for my uncle and things like that. And I was saying like, like I'm trying to ask just for the validity. And I'm like, did you guys, and they were like, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like some of this stuff, we would play, or some of this stuff is familiar, or like, no, he's not lying, like, this is the stuff that we would play, because obviously in the Caribbean and things like that, reggae is huge, soca music, calypso and things like that. But when my dad was growing up, he said that they would play country music sometimes, American country music sometimes, and when I was just there a few months ago, they're playing rap music, they're playing early 2000s rap music and stuff like that. I was hearing Pop Smoke out of some of the cars. So it's like music. Right, it's like music is still global and things like that. So it's like, when he says he did his due diligence to really go and figure out what Guyanese people were listening to in the 70s and 80s, and then I go and ask my dad and my uncles, and I'm like, hey, listen to this before I rap on it. Like, is this true? Is he telling the truth, or is he just telling me
Validity,
something?
man.
Right. What does Genius bring to the game? I say validity. But yeah, no, for sure. It was they stamped that as a fact. So, that's something that I feel like is very dope about the project as well.
Yeah. Also for me, I was just trying to immerse the listener into what Guyana could be and what it was at the time. Even with the cover art, I think it portrays. I don't know. The best way I could put it for you is you listen to it and you see it. Even the cover art reflects that. The music kind of sounds like the painting that, crazy enough, his grandfather painted.
Right. And I mean, I'm just pulling it up. Yeah, my granddad did that in '93 and whatnot, and that's from Stabrook Market and whatnot. So, I mean, really
GT.
just yeah, exactly, GT. So it's just, and my granddad being an artist and whatnot, he kind of like gave me my first like tools to draw and things like that. So he kind of like got me to like really start thinking of like a creative muscle and whatnot. And when I really started like veering over into music and things like that, I always would tell him like, hey, I want to do something to carry on this legacy and things like that. So even if I didn't like continue on and like dive into being a cartoonist or a painter or whatnot, to be able to use one of his paintings on this, to me just feels like a rite of passage or whatnot. It's like it's me putting him back out there on a mainstream level, and kind of just being like, hey, this is the cover of my book essentially, or this is the cover of my art and whatnot, and then just having that connection is crazy. And I mean, look, I ain't gonna lie, like there was a lot. I still haven't shown Genius kind of like what we could have like
That's what the
picked from or
vibe.
whatnot. But yeah, so that's the original picture of the actual
Yeah.
cover and whatnot. And
That's crazy.
that's the church that I have some pictures of that up on the actual church St. George's Cathedral in Georgetown. But like I actually have some of these pictures of me standing in front of this church, and you know we kind of end with some gospel vibes and things like that. So I definitely had to like bring that up and things like that. But you know, there's a lot we could have picked from, like, you know, some spiritual vibes, spiritual like jollification he did.
Yes, sir.
It's the actual painting of the waterfall, Kaichor waterfall and whatnot.
Beautiful.
You know, it could have been family vibes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was just a lot that like I had my uncle and my dad send from what they still have that we could have picked from. But you know, it could have gone anywhere. You know, it could have gone anywhere. There's just a whole wealth of knowledge that's still, you know, to be shown and things like that. But yeah, I mean, look, even just, you know, comic strips and things like that he did of like, you know, the family and whatnot. But it's really just to like, you know, keep it going and whatnot. So at least if someone likes that, hey, you can do your due diligence and, you know, kind of like look up and see if you find anything else. But even if you don't look deeper into the artwork, like GENiiUS said, like picking samples from that time, having artwork from around the time that I was born and things like that, you could imagine yourself. And even if you're listening on Spotify and you look at the actual like screen when you're listening to the music, you know, I tried to pick canvases because you can put up like a canvas, which is like, you know, a video or a moving image while your song is playing on Spotify. So I just took those straight from my phone from when I was last in Guyana and whatnot. And I just was you know, picking things that like spoke to the actual song at hand. So, you know, none of the images that I were using were like professional as far as like this is set up and, you know, we're trying to do like a music video. Like all of this is real on the ground visualizations that you're getting. So even if you don't see those canvases and things like that, you know, you could listen to the music and you could envision yourself actually, you know, in the cover at Starbrook Market. And I think, you know, we didn't necessarily have to try to sample reggae or calypso or make reggae music to let you feel like you were in Guyana. Like we could rap and we could sample and we can make something that speaks to the hip hop heads, and it'll still make you feel like you're in Guyana at that culture and things like that. And one of the canvases is me at Starbrook Market. So if you just think it's a drawing or something like that, you can actually look and see a real video of me walking and see the bell tower and whatnot and be like, oh, all right, well, you know, nobody's playing around here and whatnot. I mean,
not
look,
just raps.
right, even today, you know, on grilled plantains, you know, I was talking about just the connection of food and things like that, and how, you know, you could speak a different language, but food could bring you together. You know, we were talking about how music brings people together, but, you know, food can bring you together and whatnot. And then on that song, you know, I kind of said like KFC and Church's Chicken are like imperial reflections or whatnot, because that's basically when you go to these places now, you know, you're not really seeing, like, obviously you could still get like home cooked meals or you can get food like of the culture, but it doesn't have to be Guyana. It could be any place you go and travel, and you'll see a McDonald's. You'll see all these places that are basically, to me, American flags. You know, you're just planting your culture in other people's places. And, you know, it's funny because, look, Hard Rock, Guyana, like, I got the shirt because it's cool. Like, at first I'm thinking, like, damn, like, Guyana has a Hard Rock cafe. Like, you know, we're kind of like doing things now. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, you gotta think of it outside of it being cool and things like that. You're like, you know, what does that mean? You know, is it just globalization? Are we losing our culture? Or is, you know, America kind of, you know, is it a good influence? But, you know, it's all these things that we try to put into the music, man. So, yeah.
I mean, my biggest question is like, okay, who's profiting off of that? Who's,
right.
you know, like,
yeah, man. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, that song, What They Owe. We try to talk about that too because the beat he gave me was actually called Oil Money because oil was found in Guyana recently,
Mm.
and Exxon was like the first people to plant their flag. And you listen to my dad and uncle talk about it, we're not getting the lion's share of those profits.
Hmm.
So it's like, all right, everybody is excited and things like that. And, the country will still make money for sure. But, the hefty amount of those profits are just going back to Exxon and things like that. The only thing that, I mean, I'm not going to say the only, but, a big thing with Exxon being there is them helping to kind of like put like a presence down and kind of intimidate Venezuela to like kind of back off the land. That's really, I mean, so you think about, oh, the good that Exxon is down there, and you have somebody to be able to mine and sell the oil. But I think we're getting less than 50%, way less than 50%. So it's like, all right, and you listen to What They Owe, and What They Owe to me is very, the word I'm thinking of is basically like what I want to happen. Um, it's very like, is it perspective? I think like, but that's kind of like, so what they owe. What I'm trying to say is what they owe. The way I wrote it is not necessarily what's actually happening. It's what I want to happen. I say, take a look at us now, South American Saudis, these villages, um, is driving Mercedes and Audis and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, I want to see us profit off of what they found. I want people to kind of reap those benefits. I want the bridges to be repaired. I want the roads to be repaired. I want people to drive nice cars, the schools to be repaired and things like that. If you look at Dubai and you see like clearly there's got to be more going on because I mean I think we heard that they might use slave labor for things and stuff like that, but it's like
Talk about it.
if you look at Dubai and you're like, oh, is that what happened? Like, you look at Dubai like maybe 20 years ago and you look at them now, it's like, damn, is that what happened from just oil money? So it's like, yeah, you want Guyana to like kind of like build up and look like that, but the reality of the matter is it's probably not gonna happen. You'll get a little bit of um, kind of progress, but I don't think it'll happen like that. So, really what they owe is kind of what I would want to happen. And the hook is really like they gonna pay what they owe. And that could be sung from anybody that's not America. I'm not trying to be no anti-America, but like clearly it's like look at Africa, look at look
Yeah.
at look at South America, look at anywhere that's not America really, or not the Western world, because it's not just America. France is still profiting
Yep.
off of things like that, but it's
Yep.
like
The whole
you
of
just
Europe, actually.
right, and it's like you take all the resources, you take this, you take that, and we're not really getting what we're owed from what you're taking from our land and things like that. Free Congo. You don't need a new iPhone every year,
Yeah.
do you? So it's like, we're not getting paid, but like I feel like everybody could really listen to that song and understand like what I'm saying. Like, all the land that they taken, all the resources taken, they gonna pay what they owe. They gonna pay what they owe. It's like a meek shall inherit the earth one day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Hopefully,
bit of an
indeed.
affirmation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You really hit on some real shit, man.
Nah, for
That
sure.
yeah, man. No, that got me thinking about
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing Michael Perenzi, who's like Marxist, communist professor. But he has some quote basically saying that there's no such thing as like a poor nation. Because they're rich in resources, they're just
Right.
overexploited,
Mhm.
So like
I
all the
agree.
so he talked about like I mean all of Africa, right? That's the bulk of where like all the minerals and diamonds and things of that nature
Right.
come from, and I think what's important is that I think it's important for countries to have sovereignty of their own resources, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if they're the ones producing it, then why not? Why aren't they the ones kind of dictating about where the profits of that go versus a outside, you know, conglomerate corporation that's like looking for shareholder profits.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we just got real
for real
college level with it.
Yeah, because I hear people in the Discord, they're like, oh, this one's gonna radicalize me, and I like, they think they joking, but it's like, come on, man, like, you know, if that's what the music does, and that's what the music does, you know what I mean, like, you know, shout out GENiiUS again, just because, like, you know, really listening to Mock and things like that. And I don't, you know, I keep going back to that just because, like, you know, we have like this last, and we have this last FM bot and things like that. So when I look up my listens and my plays, I'm definitely top 5, if not, you know, I'll say top 5 listeners for sure for Mock and things like that. And like the Pray for Haiti project, I'll probably top 4 or something, just in our Discord and stuff like that. So like, I know I have the plays to back it up and whatnot. And like when I listen to Mock, like and hearing him talk about remittance, like that's kind of where I'm taking the pay what you owe. You know, he's talking about don't pray for Haiti, pay for Haiti. So it's like, yeah, man, like maybe we can do what Mock did for us as far as like have us thinking deeper. Like, yeah, you know, this is still bomb ass rap music, but it can have some type of intellect to it too. It can make you think deeper, you know, if it can make you like start to look around at the world around you and be like, you know, like, what's up? You know, I heard he just had a show in Chicago recently, and people don't know that Chicago was founded by like a Haitian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Jean Dusabel.
I know it's Dusable. I know it's that.
Dusable,
so it's like, so, you know, to me, it's
Jean
like,
Baptiste.
Right, okay, Baptiste. Right. So, you know, to me, it's like when he shows up and does a show, at least people in Chicago, when I was reading it online, said that he took the time to tell people about, you know, over here, this is this and this is this and this is what, you know, is the foundation of this city. And, you know, I had a friend who saw him in New York, and he did the same thing in New York. You know, not necessarily like trying to find like a Haitian connection, but at least he was like, yo, this immigrant or this person over here, this person did this. So, you know, just from, you know, really listening to his music, it shows that, like, yeah, intentionality is huge. It adds so much more to the art. And, you know, really try to find out about the foundations of what you're putting out there and putting into the music. And, you know, we just trying to do the same thing that he did for us, really. So, yeah.
That's super dope, man. That's super dope. I just love how, like, really intentional this whole project is, you know. Y'all really, like, I don't know if y'all fuck with, like, Dragon Ball Z, but, like, y'all really did, like, the fusion dance on this, for sure.
Really, for sure. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. That. I mean, yeah, shout out, obviously, Mock and the Haitian Revolution as well, you know. Yeah, it's important, you know. I think, absolutely, people from, like, these immigrant backgrounds should absolutely speak on their experiences, because, you know, right now, the narrative that's being pushed out by the people in power is that, yo, these people are the worst of the worst, you know. And yeah, they're going into, like, hospitals and going into workplaces, and they're going to, like, people going to, like, their regular check-ins, you know. And it's like, how are you going to say he's the worst of the worst, but you're clearly attacking people who are just trying to make an honest living.
But then, you know, you also see the news of, like, well, actually, we're going to let the farmers tell us who's good and who's bad, because they know that they can't sustain that that industry if all the immigrants are gone and things like that. So you're making loopholes along the way. Like, you're trying to act, you know, big and bad and say, we're going to get everyone out. But then, wait, actually, we can't do that because we actually need you. So
exactly. That exposes the contradiction of it all. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, like, you know, I've seen people online just be like, you know, I've seen, you know, black people online, I've seen them be like, oh, you know, this is not our issue or not our problem. Or they were trying to be like, oh, but, like, when someone was saying, like, yo, it's really bad in Chicago, this person was trying to say like, oh nah, like, but they're not going after citizens, right? Or they're not going after, and then they tried to be like, yo, they're hopping out of like helicopters, and then they're like running down on citizens, like they're going to the south side, or they're like pulling people out of whole like apartment buildings and things like that. And apparently, it's like, I think it's really important to say these stories because otherwise, you got people like that online who just, oh, but it's not that bad, or it can't be that bad, or it's just this group of people, or it's just that group of people. But, I see you, like I said, on Instagram talking about, yo, be careful at this corner, or this area, or this block. I see E's World talk about be careful in Waukegan. I'll see his homie Hirsch be like, yo, be careful over here, be careful over there. So, I just try to tell people online, like, obviously I can't argue with everybody because, some people just don't want to hear it. But when I do, I at least try to let people know, like, I'm from out there and I still have people out there and I see them all the time talking about how serious it is, and they're doing the work to try to educate people and, like, tell people, like, yo, over here is not safe, over here is not safe. And I don't think they would do that if it wasn't an actual threat going on outside. So, like, if no one's going to speak up, then we're going to have more people who are just uneducated and let this stuff happen. But I think the more people who speak up, we can, like, start to, like, hopefully make things better, put more of, like, a focus, get it back to the original hip-hop of when KRS-One said hip-hop was our CNN and things like that, because clearly CNN and all these places aren't going to talk about it anymore. Even GENiiUS earlier saying the same thing is happening in South Africa. So it's not just us, a lot of places going on with the same thing.
Yes, sir. I even have conversations with my my brother Baba Kushi about this. Rappers are basically journalists, for lack of a better term. They do a really good job, some of them rather, in portraying what's actually going on in the world, basically. And another thing I wanted to touch upon, just to go back to what they owe, it's such an affirmative song for me personally, since the whole scramble for Africa thing that happened in the 1800s. It's still something we're battling hundreds of years later, so what they owe is kind of like a mantra at this point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you shared the Guyanese experience, GENiiUS. You coming from the South African experience. I got this Puerto Rican flag behind me this whole time.
Sir.
I haven't even touched on it yet, but
Right.
I mean, coming from that background, so that the reason why that flag is black is that just basically represents like this kind of like this independence movement that's in Puerto Rico, because it's been a colony of the United States, for over 100 years now. Before that, it was a colony of Spain. So it's like a country that's never really had its own official independence, which is, I mean, it's so weird to think about, man. Like, this whole concept of borders is just it's not, it's just constructs, it's just made up, and like territories and things like that, man. It's just so
man, because
crazy to think about.
Even though I feel like, people are kind of have their own struggles and things like that. Guyana used to be British Guyana, and I know Barbados, they used to be under British rule, and they have their independence. Like, when you think about it, you really think about it, a lot of places have their independence. They might be still struggling, of course, but it's like they have their independence. So for you to say, like, you really put that in perspective. Like, yes, I know that, they're like a territory of America, but I did not know that they used to be from Spain. So, like, when you say that, it's like, it's like, what gotta happen? Because even Haiti, like, even though they're still dealing with the fallout, you would think that, colonies and territories hopefully would have been a thing in the past in the year of 2025. So
yeah, I mean, right now Puerto Rico is basically it's a commonwealth officially, and it's just like in this limbo state between, it's not a state, right? But it's not independent. It's not its own independent country, but it could still like represent itself in like the Olympics and stuff like that.
Right.
But ultimately, like, right, everyone that's born in Puerto Rico is considered a citizen. But
Which
they
is
have
funny.
they have no vote. They have no
Like,
representatives in like House and Senate. And, can't really vote for president, right? It's just kind of whoever's president of the United States is just automatic, which is funny because like I think Trump said like, "Yo,
oh, I'm gonna speak to the president of Puerto Rico." That's you.
Yeah.
And you know what else is funny is that all this uproar about Bad Bunny, and they don't realize that he's a citizen.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think even like I don't know. I think people maybe I think it's absurd just because I've been listening to international music for as long as I can remember. Music that I don't understand what they're saying, but it's a vibe,
Yeah. Right.
Like
right.
so it's just the idea that like people are just kind of so offended by like different languages and music is just
Right.
like we got bigger fish to fry, bro. Like why are we even talking about this respectfully?
We have bigger problems, way bigger problems.
Right.
Literally.
But if they're going to be a territory, or connected to us, show the respect. Because why? Why? If not, let them go. Like, let them be independent if you don't want to respect them. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Can't have it both ways, to me.
Yeah. But shoot, let's start wrapping up this convo, man.
For sure.
Appreciate y'all's time as it is, man. But before we wrap up, man, I guess just any final words that you want to give to the listeners. Perhaps what's the biggest takeaway that you want people to take from the album?
To me, I say I just want people to start paying attention to their surroundings and things like that. I know hip hop is an American art form and things like that, but Kool Herc, he was Jamaican. I think Busta Rhymes is Jamaican. I think, who else? Saint John is Guyanese. There's a lot of people out here who, yes, they are American, but they also represent a wider, broader diaspora and things like that. And with the UK putting their hat into hip hop on a more mainstream level in the past like 10-15 years and whatnot, obviously we have Baba Kushi, we have Kijano Damu and whatnot. I think just on a global scale, people got things to say within hip hop. So I would say just, keep an open mind and look at your surroundings and know that, while you're doing your day-to-day, other people could be just having a whole different experience than you. And they might put it in the music or something like that. Or there might be some music that speaks to that. And that's just what we're trying to do. So you might not ever heard of Guyana, but hey, this is what we're going through. This is how it's shaped me and it's affected me. And I was really influenced by a Haitian artist to even give you my story in that type of manner and things like that. And this project was produced by a South African artist who's putting me onto what he's going through and things like that. So just keep your mind open and have just kind of have that perspective, and instead of just engaging with the music, any music, on a surface level, regardless if they're being intentional or talking like how we're talking, just try to dig deeper into the music and who's actually making that music and see what you can learn.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man.
For sure, man. Where can people find y'all at, and where can they listen to from Guyana with Love?
Yes, sir. Find me on Twitter, SEYMC. And if you search, because I know sometimes when you just type in SEY, the SEO is horrible. So if you just search From Guyana with Love and you type in SEY, you should find it. And if you still can't find it, definitely type in Genius with 3 I's, and you'll have no problem. All
Yes, sir.
platforms, all platforms.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as well. theraiiinmaker, 3 I's. That's it, man.
For sure, man. Once again, appreciate y'all's time. Appreciate the conversation.
Appreciate
And
you
yeah,
for
man. All right, man. Y'all have a good rest of your day. And yeah, man. Just peace out.
You as well, G. I appreciate you. Thank
Man.
you. Peace.
Peace.